thought I'd start with a little bit of a confession as a marketer and a storyteller and an entrepreneur. And my confession is that I'm scared. And I'm scared not of speaking in front of you. That doesn't scare me anymore. But I'm scared because of two things I uncovered as I was writing Lyconomics. And what I thought I'd start by is telling you a few stories about these two scary facts that don't just affect me, but affect all of us and affect the industry that all of you are in. And the first scary fact starts with a story of a guy named Christopher Latham Scholes, a little bit over 100 years ago, who had an idea for an invention. And his invention was the typewriter. And as he created this typewriter, it was solving a problem. People wanted to record their thoughts instantly and be able to transcribe them in a neat, clean way and not have to hire scribes and people to rewrite their work, which is what they used to do. And so he built this typewriter, and pretty quickly he ran into a problem, which is people started becoming too good at using it. And when they became too good at using it, they would type fast, and when they typed fast, the keys that were slowly hitting the paper would get stuck. And so in order to slow them down, he devised a solution. And his solution was to move the most common letters further apart, to force people to use their pinkies. He redesigned the keyboard to be less optimal. And that less optimal keyboard is the QWERTY keyboard, the keyboard we mainly use today. And the entire reason it was developed the way it was developed was to slow us down. So of course, in those 100 years that passed, someone, an enterprising entrepreneur, came along and said, well, hey, I can fix this problem. We don't have typewriters with keys that get stuck anymore. So why shouldn't we have a keyboard that is designed to help us type faster and not slower? So a guy named Augustus Dvorak comes along and he develops the optimal keyboard. And he names it, humbly, after himself, the Dvorak keyboard. And the Dvorak keyboard puts the vowels on the middle line, optimizes the usage of both hands, minimizes the required usage of pinkies going up in the air. And then he finds a woman named Barbara Blackburn to take this Dvorak keyboard and use it to enter into a typing competition, which they used to have at that time, a speed typing competition. And Barbara Blackburn wins the speed typing competition with a top speed of 212 words per minute on the Dvorak keyboard. Quantifiably and clearly a better keyboard. Raise your hand if you use a Dvorak keyboard. Barbara Blackburn just showed you it's better. Quantifiably better. Wouldn't you like to type faster? Wouldn't that save you time? So why don't you use the Dvorak keyboard? Why wouldn't you? Well, it leads to the first scary fact. And the first scary fact is having a great product, a better product that is quantifiably better isn't always enough. Because people don't always choose the best thing. Even though we spend a lot of time with 30,000 studies showing that something's better. And yet, people don't get it. And we sit there and we're frustrated because they don't get it. And so the first scary fact that scares me is that having a great product isn't enough. The second fact starts with a story from history, from Herodotus, who wrote about the history of his time thousands of years ago. And one of the things he wrote about was a bird, a mysterious, monstrous, dangerous bird called the Cinnamongus bird. And the Cinnamongus bird was a bird that guarded a nest that was made of a very specific item that people of the time wanted. And this specific item were these sticks that were aromatic that people wanted to harvest in order to use in food and to burn and for all sorts of different reasons. These sticks were cinnamon. And according to the legend, what these heroic cinnamon hunters had to do in order to get these sticks was take a rock and swing it around and knock this Cinnamongus bird out of its nest so that they could then heroically climb up in order to harvest these sticks. So of course, because these cinnamon sticks were so difficult to get, they had to be expensive. And so when they traded, the price of cinnamon was all the way up here because of the story they told. The story made the cinnamon valuable until people figured out that actually there's no Cinnamongus bird. And actually cinnamon isn't all that difficult to grow if you have the right climate. And then the price started to drop. And so the second scary fact is having the right marketing isn't always enough either. Having a great story to tell isn't necessarily going to do the trick. So if you don't have great product that you can count on, and you don't have great marketing that you can count on, what are we left with? That's the fear that I have. That's the moment when I was writing this book and I was thinking to myself, we have a problem. We collectively have a problem. And from that moment onwards, my obsession became trying to figure out how to solve that problem, trying to figure out how to build a solution. Now, as I dug into finding the solution, I actually uncovered where this problem was coming from. And it wasn't just the cinnamongus bird. No, it's a long history of marketing and advertising that has led us down a dangerous and negative path. Doctors smoke camels, so they must be okay. We see ads for miracle cures, things that can solve every problem that we would ever want, whether we want to be taller or have more hair or weigh less or find the perfect partner, there's a pill for that. We can solve our problems if we just take the right pill. Now, marketing promises us that we can improve our self-image. Levi's thinks that hotness comes in all shapes and sizes. As long as your rear end is one of those sizes, which look basically the same, they don't exactly look different. But according to Levi's, hotness comes in all shapes and sizes as long as you're skinny. Because we see this often, right? Beauty products are sold with an image. And we try and see ourselves in that image. And we want to become something because we see it. And so, of course, the predictable reaction from people is, well, we're being manipulated and it's all mind control and marketing is to blame. And we imagine that PR guy with his tie and his white shirt selling toxic sludge to us and saying, it's been proven. It's good. It's okay for you. It's not going to harm you. It's not going to hurt you. And then we go into the supermarket and we see products like this, especially if you happen to live in the US, that are promoted as all natural, even though their number one ingredient is sugar and their number two ingredient is some sort of toxic chemical. But it's all natural somehow. And it'll boost your immunity, according to this ad for Cocoa Krispies, right? Because it's all natural. Here's another ad that says, in a blind taste test, hungry people chose a hot breakfast over cold cereal 90% of the time. And then in small letters at the bottom, it says, not based on a fact. How much marketing do you think needs that disclaimer on it? Not based on a fact. Imagine if you could just say anything and then just in small letters at the bottom, not based on a fact. It's okay. No offense. We were just kidding, right? Now, maybe if we tell people it's not an ad, then they'll listen, right? This is not an ad. It's a reminder to buy someone close to you a PSP for Christmas, a gaming system. So it's not an ad. It's just a reminder, right? And in the midst of all of this, we create experiences and then we ask people to love us, right? We create negative experiences. And we don't realize that they're negative experiences, and then we expect people to reward us for this negative experience we've created for them. Now, maybe in the age of social media, the ultimate solution for this is just to have better buttons. I mean, if we just had a throw tomato button on Facebook, wouldn't that solve all of our problems, right? Maybe we could just solve it with better buttons. Or maybe we just assume that the customers won't see through the difference, the secret ulterior motives, right? Evian is naive spelled backwards. Who knew that, right? Is that a conspiracy? Is it not? We don't know. But as long as we tell people, as long as we have a great story, they'll buy it. These are donut seeds. If you plant them, a donut tree will erupt out of the ground, and you'll be able to sell these donuts for millions of dollars, right? But they're actually Cheerios, not based on a fact. We put that at the bottom. And the result of all of this marketing that we see every single day is a believability crisis. It's a crisis. And though the ads that create the crisis are funny to look at and step away from objectively and say, well, we would never do that. Those are those crazy cereal manufacturers in America causing the problem for all of us. But we all have the problem, and it's a crisis. And the problem with this crisis is that it affects consumer trust on every level, everything that we see. And so there's distrust as a basis for everything. Right? And people don't know what to believe. They just know that they're angry. And they choose to be angry, and that's now the new political affiliation across the world. I'm not this party or that party. I'm just angry. I just want change. That's all I want. Because my data's being stolen, and I don't know where it's going, and I don't know who's using it, and I don't know why they're using it, and I don't know what's going to happen. And I'm bombarded with ads every single day that try and sell me something. And so I need some sort of defense mechanism. And there was a fascinating study of online advertising that looked at this issue of people starting to filter these things out. And of course, we have DVRs and ad blockers and things like that. But when they did an eye tracking study of an actual web page, where they watched where people's eyes went and recorded them based on a heat map, they found something fascinating, which is that the pages that people looked at, the areas on those pages where ads typically were completely avoided. So much so that the study coined a term to describe this phenomenon. And the term they coined was banner blindness. As in, we are so overwhelmed with these messages that we now have become blind to them. We don't want to see any of these messages anymore because we need to filter them out in order to see something that we want to see. So the bottom line is that selling anything in any industry has become harder than ever before because of the believability crisis. Now that is the result of all of these messages that we see and all of this mistrust that's been fueled by so many different industries. But what if I told you that you could solve this problem by focusing on the one thing that we've lost, by trying to rebuild that one thing, and that there was a real way that you could actually do it? Now, the thing that we need is trust, right? That's what we need to recover. Not based on losing it in a particular industry, but based on the fact that people don't inherently trust us because we are selling them something. Not because of who we are. It's easy to become the victim and say, well, they don't trust us or our industry because of this and this and this. But it's a little bit easier to realize that trust is not something that's given anymore. Trust is something we have to earn. So the real question becomes, well, how do we earn it? Because the fact is, people want to believe in the products that they buy and the people that they buy them from. They actually want great products. They want you to tell them the truth. They want to be able to talk about something and say, oh, this product changed my life. It helped my mother-in-law recover from traumatic brain injury. It was amazing. They want products like that. They love products like that. They long for the chance to do that. But the problem is it's so difficult. And it's so difficult because we don't know who to trust. And there's so many places where we lose trust without even meaning to. And so really what I want to do today is take you through what my research has shown on the principles behind trust and why we lose it and how we can get it back. And so what I'm going to take the rest of my time to do with you is share 5 specific principles along with a tip for each one for how you can use it in your business to change the way you communicate or change the way you relate to your customers. Because I think that if we can take advantage of these 5 principles and if we can just get smarter about avoiding the mistakes that everybody else in every other industry makes, then we can really earn trust. And when we earn trust, all sorts of good things happen. People love the experience, they talk about it, they believe it, and they start taking on your detractors for you. Wouldn't it be great to have an army of consumers the next time a report comes out that says, oh, we don't know about the health benefits of omega-3s? Wouldn't it be amazing to have a group of consumers saying, well, wait a second, I have this experience, and here's a group of 1,000 people over here who've had amazing results, and they did all the communications for you, and they went to the New York Times, and you just sat back and said, yep, we're awesome. Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't you love that? Well, let's talk about how to make that happen. First principle, embrace the cold, hard, dirty, beautiful truth. Now, we're pretty good about massaging the truth in general, because sometimes the truth isn't all that convenient, right? Sometimes we don't necessarily want to admit that the thing we have isn't maybe the best, but it's still pretty good, it's still okay. But we're not really in the space of telling people that, right? But imagine a global superstar from Hong Kong who does the exact opposite in every one of his films, and people love him for it. If you're a fan of Jackie Chan films, and you see him diving off of things and doing amazing, crazy stunts, what happens at the end of every Jackie Chan film? He shows you the outtakes, the moments when he screws up, the time when he's trying to slide through that super tight spot and he gets slammed and he slams his shoulder and he's like, he's in pain and it didn't quite work out, and all of that shows you the truth. that this isn't just this amazing guy who got this right one time. He probably did that 70 times, that stunt, in order to get it right that one time. And as a result of seeing that, of seeing him flying through the air and landing on, before he had these big budget Hollywood films with the nice cushion pillow where he could jump off a building and land on top of one of these pillows, he used to use empty cardboard boxes. So there were empty cardboard boxes stacked up, and you see him flying through the air, and he lands on these empty cardboard boxes, and that's how he cushions his fall. And as you see that, you realize this is a real, authentic stuntman superstar who's going through all of this pain just to get that perfect shot. And as a result of seeing that, you think, he's amazing. He's amazing to watch. And you become a fan. Even though he speaks English phonetically and he barely, most of his movies aren't high acting in terms of, drama standards, but he's amazing to watch. And people love him because of that. Now, big corporations are also using the same principle. So a marketing manager in Canada decided to create an answer to a predictable question that McDonald's got through a marketing campaign they probably shouldn't have done. And the marketing campaign was to go out to consumers and say, ask us anything. Anything you want. We're McDonald's, ask us whatever you want. Now that's pretty dangerous because McDonald's is a brand that has a lot of people who really hate McDonald's. And so you could predict that they would probably get some pretty contentious questions. And they did. But one of the questions that was sort of in the middle was from a Twitter user that said, hey, why does all of your food in the ads look so much better than the food I get when I walk into a McDonald's and I buy the product? So Canadian marketing manager Hope Bagazi walks into a Toronto McDonald's. She buys a quarter pounder, all on film. Then she goes to her food studio, which is also in Toronto. She gives it to the guy in the food studio, and she says, show me what you do to take a photo. Why doesn't the burger that I buy look like the burger you photograph? And so the food stylist, that's his title, food stylist, right? So he probably wanted to be a real stylist, and he ended up a McDonald's food stylist. Can't all exactly be what we want, but food stylist comes and takes the burger, and he takes a photo of the burger that Hope got from the McDonald's. And then he shows her how he prepares the burger for a proper photography session. And he shows her how he super toasts the side of the patty so that it's crusty and it doesn't actually sink. And the bread is extra toasted, so it'd be like crunchy and hard like a crouton, but actually for a photo it's good because it all sits on top of everything else. And then he uses his little injector to put the ketchup and the mustard and the mayo separately, because if you mix those things up, it's just a goo mess, and nobody wants that in a picture, but obviously that's what happens when you get the burger. And through this whole process, what he does is he takes the buns from the exact same bag that McDonald's uses, and he takes the patty from the exact same storage place. And as this several minute long video, 3-minute long video, it transpires, you realize that he's using the exact same stuff. This is not a different burger. This is the exact same burger, just photographed in a different way because it's a two-dimensional photo, and so everything's kind of lopsided. So if you looked at it sideways, it would be kind of like this, but in a full photo, it looks good. It looks like this. And these are the two side by side. Same burger, same ingredients, just photographed differently. So what McDonald's did in that moment is they took you behind the scenes and showed you what an actual photo shoot of a hamburger looks like. Now, you might think, yeah, great, only a couple of burger enthusiasts maybe might watch that. Big deal. But that video has more than 10 million views today. And the reason it has more than 10 million views is because people are seeing behind the scenes at McDonald's, a place you don't usually get to see behind the scenes of. So they've taken people behind the scenes and they've shown them proactively the truth. And when you do that, when you take people behind the scenes and show them the truth, they believe you. Because you didn't have to do that. McDonald's didn't have to show you how they do the photo session. They chose to do that. And because they chose to do that, you believe what they tell you. That's the way trust starts to work. Now, I use the same principle when I first launched Lyconomics, because I wanted to take people behind the scenes and show them what it actually takes to write a book. And I only partially joke sometimes that there's two types of people in the world. There's people who've written a book and people who think, one day I'll write a book. And so everybody wants to know, like, what does it really take to write a book? How does it come together? Do you have to just be like a natural writer? Do you have to be a super gifted sort of fast typer? Do you use a Dvorak keyboard? Or do you just hire somebody to write the book for you as a ghostwriter and you just kind of sit back and then you take all the credit? Is that how it works? And so I took them behind the process of Lyconomics, which I did write myself. I'm a writer, I've always have been. Studied English in school, and so I graduated with an English degree. But the first thing I admitted, right in the beginning of that presentation, was I didn't come up with the name for the book. My literary agent came up with the name for the book. And so the first thing I'm telling people is, I can't take all the credit because somebody else came up with the title. Then I go through and I share with them the original book proposal that we took and sold to McGraw-Hill to get the deal for the book, including the alternate title. Then I take them through the folders for each different chapter of the book and how I gathered all the information and put it into different categories. And while I was working in a full-time role, at that time I was working at Ogilvy, a brand strategy company, and so I had a full-time job. And I was sort of writing the book in the side moments when I could. And so when I was traveling for work, I'd take my index cards and I'd spread them out in the hotel room that I happened to be at to try and structure the book and move things around. I had a desk set up with my coffee and the books and a big screen monitor and all of the different things that I had every single day as I was writing the book so that I could kind of be in the right space to write in a long period of time. And I realized for me that there was a dead time during the day between 3:30 and 7:30 in the afternoon where I couldn't write no matter what, and so I just stopped trying. I just took a break then. And then I'd go back and I'd write later on. Even though I'm a digital guy, this is what the actual draft manuscript started to look like, and I would scribble by hand my edits and then make them afterwards, and I'm showing people all of those things, and then finally when I deliver the draft to the publisher, and they come back with a couple of different versions of a cover, and I see these covers and I think, yuck, these are the worst covers ever. I can't believe they came up with these covers. I hate them. And so I went to stock imagery photography and I came up with a couple of different covers that I sent back to them and said, hey, maybe something like this. Try one of these different covers. And eventually they came back and they developed the cover for the actual book. And then I took the cover of the book and I took the initial chapters of the book and I managed to, through a connection, get Deepak Chopra to look at a copy of, or his people to look at a copy of the book and say, would you please do an endorsement for this? And he did an endorsement, then went on to the cover of the book. And so all of that illustrated the process of going from nothing, just a book proposal and a title and an email from a literary agent, all the way through to having a best-selling book with a cover endorsement from Deepak Chopra. And as soon as people see that whole progress, they say, okay, I sort of see what you did there. I see how you did that. And I took my whole book proposal and I put it online and I said, if you're ever thinking of writing a book, take this proposal. These are the sorts of things you should use. Here's the 20-page proposal we use to sell to the publisher, and people can download that and they can use it for their own book. And so the whole process behind that is to make this real, right? To take people behind, to show them the truth. Now there's one brand that does this amazingly well, even though their truth is not one that probably most of us would embrace. And this is a hotel brand in Amsterdam called the Hans Brinker Budget Hotel, which has been proudly disappointing travelers for 40 years, boasting levels of comfort comparable to a minimum security prison. This is what all of their marketing looks like. They have people standing outside the train station in Amsterdam saying, don't ask me to take you to the Hans Brinker Budget Hotel. Don't. They have cutouts for items that are not included, such as telephones, combs, hair dryers. They have a Post-it note for their games room because they don't have a games room. Their marketing brochures have asterisks next to all the items that are not included, such as maid service, combs, lamps, curtains, windows. Their gold badge of honor says not one of the best hotels in the world. And according to a list of highly desirable places to stay in Amsterdam, they're directly above an unmarked grave and below an abandoned mine shaft in terms of great places to stay. And if all of this marketing hadn't been convincing enough for you, that you thought in your mind, oh, I have to go there already, they leave with a bold yet true brand promise, which is the Hans Brinker Budget Hotel can't get any worse, but we'll do our best. Now, I wouldn't be sharing this story with you if it didn't somehow turn out that this worked, which of course it does. And they're fully booked almost year-round. And the reason they're fully booked almost year-round is because their target audience is young people who are backpacking through Europe, who don't typically have a lot of money. But their number one thing they're searching for is an amazing story. And what better story to Vine and Instagram and YouTube and post on Twitter and every single other place they can think of than to say they stayed at the world's worst hotel and survived. Isn't that an amazing story? Wouldn't you want to tell everybody you know that story? And of course they do. And when you walk into the Hans Brinker Budget Hotel and you're coming into the lobby and you're in the middle and you're checking in, there's only two things you can do at that front desk. You can check in or you can purchase a book full of 10 years worth of marketing that looks like this from the Hans Brinker Budget Hotel, because their marketing has become so iconic, talking about how bad their experience is, that people want to stay there because of it. So the marketing tip here is find ways to be proactively honest. Now, hopefully you don't have an awful experience you're trying to sell. So that's not your marketing message. It works for the Hans Brinker Budget Hotel. I wouldn't say that would work for everybody. But the tip here is, if you can find ways to tell people things you don't have to tell them, to take them behind the scenes, to be proactively honest, it makes a huge difference. And they will trust you more because you did that. Second principle, achieve relevance through purposeful storytelling. Now, I love stories. I love telling stories. I love listening to stories. As a consumer, I believe in the power of stories. The problem with stories is a lot of times when we promise a story, we end up with something like this. Our story, the story of First State Bank. Our bank was founded by so-and-so and so-and-so in this year, and then it was acquired by somebody and somebody else for this many $1 billion. And then they moved from this location to that location. And then they moved to 3 different locations, and 3 sons fought about who was going to have control of this whole bank. And eventually this son took over and shafted the other 2 sons, and now everybody's angry at everybody else, and they don't talk to each other at holidays, and that's our story. Is that a compelling brand story? Is that a story you would want? Of course not. Simply writing our story at the top of a page doesn't make it a story. This is not a story anybody would want. Contrast that with this story. Our story, a company with heart, Custom Ink. Mark spent long hours on his green couch. There's the green couch. A hand-me-down from his big brother, talking to Dave by phone and planning the business. The more they worked at it, the more convinced they became that getting custom t-shirts the traditional way was a pain in the neck and that they could make it fun, easy, and reliable with a design online website. You know what they do as a business. You get it from the story. But now they're human. There's a real guy sitting on a real ugly green couch because he doesn't have anything else, founding a business around probably the most commoditized product ever, t-shirts. I mean, everybody sells t-shirts. How can you possibly stand out for selling t-shirts? Well, Custom Ink stands out for selling t-shirts by saying, we believe in the power of t-shirts. Are you kidding? The power of t-shirts? Everybody has t-shirts. What power of t-shirts? We wear t-shirts because they're comfortable. But Custom Ink believes that if we put on the same t-shirt, if all 200 of us put on the same t-shirt together, we'd be on the same team. And that'd be a powerful thing. And they go so far as to say, we believe in the power of t-shirts for people that nobody else appreciates. So if you've seen the Harry Potter films, you know that the game invented in Harry Potter, Quidditch, is a central part of the film. What you might not know is that people play Quidditch in real life. There's real-life Quidditch games. Now, obviously, they don't fly around. They stay on the ground. But at college campuses all over, people play Quidditch. And if you're a college student anywhere in the world and you're playing Quidditch, you're probably pretty used to ridicule. That's just a fact. I mean, playing a fictional game from Harry Potter, yeah, you're going to get made fun of. But Custom Ink doesn't make fun of you. No, they create an entire section of their website dedicated to Quidditch jerseys. And they are the only ones out there who say, hey, you want to play Quidditch? It's fine, we have a jersey for you. In fact, come to us and we'll create the entire jersey for your entire team, your entire league. And because they embrace people who are living that story, those people are hugely loyal to them in return. Because they are the only ones who stand up and say, hey, you want to play Quidditch? Fine. You're going to need a jersey, and we're going to get it for you. And they win because of that. My friend Peter Guber is a Hollywood producer. He's behind several Hollywood amazing films. And he wrote a book a couple of years ago called Tell to Win. And in the book, he told the story of an entrepreneur named Linda Resnick. And Linda Resnick was the entrepreneur behind the resurgence of pomegranate juice, Palm Wonderful Juice. And she also had a moment several years ago where a product, maybe not a product, an item that was a huge part of her history went on sale at a Sotheby's auction. And it was this pearl necklace, an iconic piece of American history from Jackie O, the wife of former President John F. Kennedy, way back in the 60s. It was the necklace that she wore in every single photograph. And Linda decided, I want that necklace, I have to have it. And so she sent her auction guy. I imagine every billionaire has an auction guy who they send to auctions to buy stuff for them. So she sent her auction guy to the auction, and he had his card, and he puts his card up at 25,000 pounds, and 50,000 pounds, and 100,000 pounds. And the price keeps going higher and higher and higher. And eventually, it gets to be over 200,000 pounds when finally he buys it. Now, she's a billionaire, and she bought a piece of US history for more than 200,000 pounds. Big deal, right? She has the money. But she wasn't buying it for sentimental reasons only. She was buying it as a business investment because she then turned around, went to the Home Shopping Network, created a replica of this product, and sold it for more than $20 million worth of sales. Now, anybody who bought the $150 replica of this pearl necklace wasn't buying it because they needed a pearl necklace. They were buying it because of the story. The story was what they bought. The story was why it was relevant. And because of that story, they believed in that purchase enough to spend $150 either as a gift or for themselves. And so the second marketing tip is use stories for an emotional connection. Because stories are what bring data points to life. Data doesn't bring itself to life. And you can have all of the amazing statistics that you want, but the stories are what make that emotional connection. Third principle, provide big and small acts of unselfishness. Now, unselfishness isn't that easy for companies. And it's definitely not easy for big companies. I remember seeing a forum from BlackBerry at one point that asked people to share their customer success stories. And in order to share your story of a successful experience using a BlackBerry, you had to fill out a form that asks for your first name, your last name, your address. How many people in your company use a BlackBerry Enterprise server? Whether you're considering a new purchase of a BlackBerry Enterprise server in the next 6 months or not. And in order to fill out this story, so-called story, you had to give them all of these data points that were clearly just filling up their database. And anybody would look at that and say, well, why would I do all of that work? What's the point? I'm not helping me, I'm helping you. That's selfish behavior. It's an example of selfish behavior. Now, the opposite of selfish behavior is this code. How many people recognize this code? A couple of super gamers who grew up probably around the same time that I did. So this is the Konami code. And the Konami code is a secret code from the Japanese video game company that allowed you to cheat in video games. If you pressed up, up, down, down, left, right, B, A, start on your controller, in some games you would get 30 lives instead of 3 lives. And by getting 30 lives instead of 3 lives in some games, including this game, Contra, which I used to play when I was a kid, you could actually beat the game. And without those 30 lives, I guess somebody could beat the game, but I clearly didn't have the skills, and my brother clearly didn't, so we needed the cheat code. But the cheat code gave us a chance to actually make it through the game. The cheat code was what allowed us to fall in love with this game, because they understood that, yeah, they could have kept it as everybody only gets 3 lives, and that's a rule, and if you're going to make it through the game, you have to earn it. Or they could have realized that there's a 10-year-old kid who's not going to have the skills, and that 10-year-old kid's mom is never going to let them play long enough to actually make it through the game. So they need some sort of cheating in order to actually experience this thing. And they realized that, and they made it happen. Now, Weber's a company that's realized that for many years, Weber Grills. They make barbecue grills. And when I was in the market for a barbecue grill, the first thing I did is I went online to do my research, because because I didn't know if I needed a gas grill or a charcoal grill. And that's the religious decision to make when you're in the grill industry, right? And so I had to make that religious decision, and I didn't know how. So I started looking for information. And the first thing I found was a PDF from Weber that said how to choose a grill. Perfect. So I downloaded that PDF, and I read through it, and it showed me how I could cook meat on there and how I could cook fish on there and what the flavors would be. And at the very end of this PDF, it gave me a checklist. And the checklist said, check off the things that are important to you and take this to your dealer. Because they knew that people don't buy a grill online, right? It's a huge item. So you do your research online, and then you walk into a local store and you buy one. So I walked into the local store, and I had my PDF checklist, and I handed it to the guy, and I said, this is what I'm looking for. And he says, welcome, sir. And he walks me straight over to the section where the Weber grills are, and he says, this is the Weber grill you should buy. They made the sale before I even walked in the door. They made it online, even though I didn't buy online. And they made the sale because they were useful. They provided value. They were unselfish. In that moment, they could have told me that they have $100 off every grill, special, or that they just introduced a new light that when you close the door, you can see what you're cooking. All of those are nice features, but if I don't even know if I want a gas grill or a charcoal grill, those details don't help me. What helps me is solving my problem. And that is the key. That is what content marketing is all about. That's why huge companies like Hilton are investing in programs like this. It's a Twitter account from Hilton called Hilton Suggests, where they answer questions from anyone about anything related to travel. So if you land in Madrid and you want an amazing tapas restaurant, you send a message to Hilton and they'll help you find one, whether you're staying at a Hilton or not. Now, why would they do that? It's not really for customers, because they don't know if you're a customer or not. But what they're trying to do is demonstrate that they're being helpful. And by being helpful, they're hoping the next time you come back, you might choose to stay at a Hilton property. That's the bet they're making. And so the marketing tip here is go beyond marketing to answer bigger questions. What are the bigger questions in the industry around omega-3s? But what are the bigger questions around health and how people should be living? And how can you answer those questions in a more holistic way? It's not about always trying to convince people to take more supplements. How do they properly cook the food that they're cooking to get the maximum value out of the omega-3s that are in that food? Are you answering that question for them? Could you answer that question for them? You probably have the answer in your head. But that's not what we tend to think about when we create content. We tend to think about content as selling, not being unselfish. But if we can be unselfish, the content becomes so much more valuable. Fourth principle, worship simplicity. Now, a lot of times we, as product people or as owners of companies or as marketers, think that the best thing to create is something that does everything. How useful is that? If we could just create something that provided the maximum amount of value, then people would clearly choose that. Right? Except, as you can see with this image, if you had to use any one of the functions in this, it becomes completely impossible to use. Imagine trying to use the screwdriver on this, or the saw, or anything. It's impossible. And that's what we end up creating, because we choose complexity instead of simplicity. Now, we choose it in many different ways. We choose it based on how we sell or what we talk about as well. So the former CEO of United Airlines had this amazing series of videos that created vast amounts of ridicule inside of the US because of how bad they were. And one of the series of videos talked about him focused on the prowess of his airline for cargo. And there was a line I remember in that video, sitting in one of those planes, that said, "United has been moving cargo longer than we've been moving people." That was his line on a consumer airline. And you're sitting there like this, thinking, yeah, I see how you'd be good at moving cargo. Not so much at how you're good at moving people, though, which is what I really care about, because I'm on a consumer passenger flight. So why would you talk about cargo? Who cares? And when you say you're improving the quality of our onboard product, which, by the way, is meaningless to anybody who's a consumer. What is an onboard product? Is that the seat? Is that the food? What is that? Is that the experience? But when you get on a video and say that, and then right afterwards the flight attendant comes on and says, I'm sorry, but we don't have any running water on this flight because it's just not working. Imagine if he embraced the principle of honesty and simplicity instead and said, I'm the CEO of United. We have 4,000 planes. We have successfully converted and made over about 2,000 of them. They're actually pretty nice. We fixed them up. The other 2,000, not so much. And if you happen to be on one of our 2,000 older planes, it's not going to be a good experience. But we're working on it. Imagine if he said that. But of course he wouldn't, right? Because this is what we're used to hearing from corporate folks. There was no nefarious activity. There wasn't any desire to obfuscate or hide information. Do you trust him? Is that trustworthy language from an executive? Are those trustworthy words from an executive? I don't even know what half of those words mean, and I went to school for English. This is not a trustworthy person. And the problem is we complicate things needlessly because we think that we have to, in the interest of regulation, or in the interest of thoroughness, or in the interest of telling people everything that they could possibly want to know about our products. What if we could flip it? What if we could have Shazam-level simplicity? Now, if you're not familiar with this, Shazam is an app that you put on your phone, and it has one button. And you open up the Shazam app, and it listens to the music around you. And when you press the button, it will listen to the music, and it will tell you what song is playing. That's all. Now, there's buttons afterwards if you want to buy the song and download it, or all of those things. But this is a one-button app that does one thing and solves one problem, which is you're sitting in your car, you're listening to a song on the radio, and you're thinking, oh, that's an amazing song. And you get to the stoplight, and you open up Shazam, and you press the button, and it listens to the song, and it tells you, this is the song. Hugely valuable and simple. There's another company called the Memphis Drum Shop, which has a series of YouTube videos. And if you use YouTube as a part of your marketing strategy, they are a great example to look at because they create videos that are destined to never go viral. Think about that for a second. This is the back of a guy playing drums with no other music. It's just a drummer playing drums, and it's all about the cymbal that he's playing, the 22-inch Zildjian Ping Ride cymbal. How many people are really going to watch that? I mean, you have to be a drummer and or a super technical musician to really care about that. And so, of course, every single one of their videos has a couple hundred views, maybe maximum a couple thousand from somebody who has a lot of people following them on Instagram and posted it. But their channel has 27 million views and more than 6,000 videos. So their channel is viral and their videos aren't. Imagine that for a second. What if you could create a viral channel and not a viral video? Because a viral video is a one-hit wonder. It's that song from that band in the 1970s who never had any other song, and that's the only song they're ever remembered for. Is that what you want your marketing to be? A one-hit wonder? Or would you rather create a platform, something that allows people to engage more deeply with you, that answers their questions, that solves their problems, that offers simplicity? There's huge value in doing that. And that's what we should be trying to do with our marketing. Now, the ultimate in simplicity is this, which is a business plan, the original business plan for Southwest Airlines, which was, we are going to fly between these three cities because nobody else does. And that's all we're going to do. What if your next business plan or your next product launch plan was that simple? What if it could be drawn on a napkin? Do you think it would be easier to describe to people what they should do next? Do you think it'd be easier to get your team aligned? Wouldn't it be easier to explain to consumers what your value proposition is? That's the level of simplicity we should be aiming for. And ultimately what it comes down to, and the tip here is, when you embrace simplicity, you make your story easier to believe. The easiest, in fact. And a lot of times, the winner in an industry is the one who makes their story the easiest to believe. That's the key. Now, the fifth principle is respect the timing. really matters. Being in the right moment at the right time. Now, there's a lot of examples of people doing this in various moments, right? There's Qantas Airlines, which gave consumers a nice gift of a package when they arrived at their destination and a holiday greeting, right? It's a nice moment of timing because they realize the environment around them and they realize what the value is. Now, there's another company that invested millions of dollars on trying to create an amazing experience around the timing of what they do, which is deliver pizza. So Domino's Pizza has been hugely growing in Asia, sort of not losing as much in the US as other competitors. And one of the big investments they made was improving their product because they went out, they talked to focus groups, and the focus groups all said that your crust tastes like cardboard and your sauce tastes like ketchup. And that's not good for pizza. So Domino's, instead of deciding to create some new innovation, and we're talking about America here primarily, so what they could have done, what their competitors did, is find some way of stuffing chocolate sauce into the crust or something else disgusting that nobody in their right minds, except for people in America, would ever eat. But instead of doing that, they decided to fix their pizza. And they said, we're going to get chefs to make a better tasting pizza. And then they went out and spent millions of dollars talking to consumers about how they fixed their product. And all of it was timed around this idea that we want more authentic products, and even a huge company like Domino's can win. Now imagine you're a small competitor owning a small pizza shop trying to compete against the vast millions of dollars that Domino's is spending. It might seem like there's no way to compete with that, but one pizza shop in New York decided they had the perfect comeback, and so they posted this marketing billboard. We never had to change our recipe because it never sucks. So there's always a way to fight back, and the point of all of this is your pitch has to work in the moment when people are ready to hear it. So update your pitch for right now. That's the key. Update your pitch for right now. So to recap, how do you really build more trust and solve this problem of the believability crisis that we're all facing? What's the formula, if there were such a thing, to do that? Well, if you've been following along, it's a little bit of a clever play on words, but the principle, the formula behind it is 5 main things that spell the word trust: truth, relevance, unselfishness, simplicity, and timing. That's the formula. If you can start to do those things, what you end up with is a trustworthy company. And that's what ultimately we should want to create, because trustworthy companies sell more products, have more customer loyalty, hold on to their employees longer, and win. And I'm sure you want to do all of those things. So what do you do with this? How do you implement these things? Well, I want to leave you at the end of my talk with 3 things to do when you get back to work after leaving this beautiful place, except for the one guy who lives here, so he'll go back to work down the street. So what do you do next? Well, the first action idea is reinvent your about us story. And one of the tips I like to share with people when you're doing that is if you take the way you describe your product or your company, you print it out, and you read it out loud. If it sounds like something you would say in a conversation, you're good. If it sounds like something you'd never say out loud, it needs to be changed, because it's not human language. Now, I spent many years training as a playwright and a screenwriter. And as a playwright and a screenwriter, when you write something, you write it to be spoken. And so it's always human, because it's something someone is saying. That's what your story should be. If you wouldn't deliver this to somebody as a spoken story, change it, because it's not human enough. Second tip, create insanely useful content. Can you solve problems for people? Can you answer questions that they're asking? Maybe not necessarily asking you, but that's a good place to start. What do people always ask you? What do your customers always ask you? If you have a blog for your product or for your company, start off blog posts with answering the question you get asked most often. It's a perfect place to start. Because now you're adding value back for people. And by the way, if you do that, the nice side effect that happens is it becomes super Google friendly, and all of a sudden you start ranking for searches for those questions. Because you've answered questions and it's in content that's rapidly updating, and all of the things the search engines like. If you'd like to be on the higher results of Google, which who wouldn't, right? All of those things happen when you create more useful content. And the third tip is inspire your community. Understand who those customers are who love you and why they love you. Try and inspire them. Give them things to talk about. Bring them in. Show them behind the scenes. Tell them the truth that you didn't have to tell them, because all of those things build trust. As Adam said, I will stick around afterwards. I believe we have a break now, but I will stick around afterwards to answer any questions. I'll be moderating the session that is after your coffee break. I want to leave you with a couple of ways of getting in touch with me. I'm, of course, on all of social media. So my Twitter name is just my full name. If you're a Twitter person or if you're a LinkedIn person, I'm relatively easy to find. There's one other, Rohit Bhargava, that is on LinkedIn, and he is a spectrochemical engineer that has created all sorts of amazing advances in detecting cancer cells. So I got a couple of congratulations notes on Facebook when he did that, which was nice, but I didn't do that. I'm the other one, but you'll see me because my title description says marketer, storyteller, and nice guy. So I invite you to challenge that last promise for yourself. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. I hope you have an amazing rest of your event. And I think we have a coffee break, or maybe you're coming up first, and then we have a coffee break. Thank you.